Hello.
Shalom and welcome.
We didn't talk about who was going to do it.
Sent you the message in the chat.
I didn't see the chat. I forgot my hat, and I was like, oh, crap.
I'm going to steal my thunder. Shalom and welcome, everyone. I'm doing the intro tonight, Seamus. Welcome to another edition of, well, I guess this is not really KTC tonight. This is just an alternate media live. And this is another one concerning days, feasts, holidays. I don't know if you can consider this necessarily a holiday. This is more of a sad, somber one. But we're going to be discussing Tish B'Av tonight. And there are a number of reasons that this is a somber one. But before we get into that, two things as usual. Seamus, who do you have in spirit with you tonight?
A Mr. Samuel Adams. And the reason is because I'm using our brand new alternate media Preparing the Way mug, which has written on it, hard drinks for hard theology. So sporting this today.
Yep. I am doing a 15. Hang on, maybe it'll focus. A 1554 Belgian dark ale.
Oh.
It's an enlightened Belgian dark ale. And for the very same reason, I'll be drinking it out of our alternate media beer mug. On the back, we have Context over Dogma.
Yes.
So this is one of the items that is available. These are two of the items that are available in our merch shop, which is on our website now, which is now active. So that's awesome.
Yes, merchandise is available on the website. You should definitely go check that out. We got a bunch of crazy stuff. My favorite thing, actually, I recently created, I haven't even gotten a copy of it yet, is the notebook.
Yes, I can't wait to get a notebook.
I just lost my monitor. I am having all sorts of technical difficulties today.
Yeah, some of you may have noticed he's not using his usual mic, and that is because of some of the problems that we had last week. So
I don't know why I can't get my monitor to come back online, so I can still see you and hear you and everything. Well, I can't see you. I can still hear you, but I can't see you. It's for some reason it's saying it's not getting a signal from my device. Yeah, my docking station is fried. I can no longer. Okay, moving on with the show. I'll figure it out. We're good. You do your thing. I will probably be a little occupied while you take the reins on this one, sir.
Well, the next part is going to be giving a shout out to our patron supporters.
Oh.
Which I believe, if I'm doing this correctly.
Yeah, you're going to have to do it because I can't see the monitor at all.
Okay, well.
Get rid of the two-person camera layout so that when you present the patrons.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, yeah. Why is it not? It's so frustrating. I don't know why I suddenly lost my monitor.
I'm doing terrible at this.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Tonight is just an adventure. Let's just call it what it is.
Oh my goodness, I can't even anymore. I actually can't. I'm trying to pull the Google Chrome page over to my laptop so I can still work, but it's stuck on the other monitor that I can't see, and I can't pull it in.
I'm gonna figure. There we go, guys. I did it. I never do any of this stuff. But I low-key kind of know how, as you can see.
I don't know what's going
on. A shout out to our special heretic supporters. We'll be talking about a little bit of that tonight. We love each and every one of you. We thank you so much for your support. you guys have helped this ministry to grow to a point now where we have like a fully functional website and merch shop. Like this stuff couldn't happen without you guys. So a big thank you from both of us. Well, from all of us who are on staff. We have hit a new milestone, I think, with the launch of the website, and we couldn't be more stoked about it.
Speaking of the launch of the website, a bunch of the articles right now are free. A lot of
Yes.
those articles are only available to the Patreons. We've temporarily made them free articles for now on the website as like a celebration for the launch. So get them while you can, because next week those will probably go back to being paid only access. And that website's still we're still updating and adding pages and adding stuff to it. So it's still a work in progress, but it is up and running.
Absolutely. So with that out of the way, get back to our usual programming here. How you doing with your technical difficulty?
I still don't have a monitor.
Oops. Oh, so tonight, like I said, we're talking about Tisha B'Av. Now, a lot of you may have already read some Chabad articles about this, so you may already know some of what we're going to go through tonight. Although I think I can speak for both of us when I say there's a bit of perspective in certain aspects of certain events that happened on Tisha B'Av in history that will be very meaningful, especially to those who are followers of Yeshua. But so Tisha B'Av is renowned as the anniversary of the destruction of the temple, both times. But these are not the only travesties that have happened on Tisha B'Av. Midrashically speaking, the spies brought back bad reports that ultimately resulted in the 40-year wanderings in the desert. When those reports were brought back, midrashically speaking, would have been Tisha B'Av. So you could say the troubles of Israel on this day go back pretty far. Chabad actually dates that to be 1313 BCE. So, pretty far way back. You look frustrated, sir. See, you can't see me, but I can see you.
I've regained control, but now I have to get my bearings. But we're good. we're all right. Okay, You'd think unplugging the monitor would mean that everything would come back to the laptop.
No.
It, for some reason, would not. And so I would have just unplugged the monitor, and everything. My computer is it's still on the other monitor. I'm like, what other monitor? It's not even plugged in.
Why would it work that way? That's too simple.
So, yeah, it's time for a new docking station for sure. Time to stop running the entire show studio off of a MacBook. Meme lord over here. Okay. After all that, I'm going to enjoy my, what sucks too is I keep looking down at my laptop and not up at the camera, which is why I have the monitor right here. So I don't have to, whatever. Anyway,
right.
As you were.
I was going to say, I feel like you and I have tried this 1554 once, a long time ago, but,
may I see it? I didn't get to see it. It looks familiar. It's a New Belgium.
From New Belgium?
Yep.
Yeah, it's man, it's very rich. I will say it's richer than I expected it to be. But man, I love the way that looks though.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked about these.
The blue and the yellow looks good too. Hard drinks for hard theology.
Yes. There's another one up there that is in a more Koine Greek font that says de-Hellenized Christian.
Yeah, so technically this is the Koine Greek, all caps. That's Koine.
Oh, okay.
The other one would be like a more modern Greek. It says
Is it
de-Hellenized.
more modern?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it looks very similar to what I see in like the biblical manuscripts.
So you're reading from like a Textus Receptus, which has modern Greek letters.
Okay, that makes
the
sense.
ancient Koine Greek had no lowercase letters. Yeah. But cool. So Tish B'Av, the saddest day ever.
Well, I mean, so here's an interesting thing. Some of you may have noticed this. A friend of ours, actually somebody we have here on staff, noticed this and texted it to us. He mentioned that rather than being on TikTok, he's been watching a lot of YouTube shorts, right? And at a certain point, he noticed a ton of shorts that are just clips from Schindler's List, right? Somehow YouTube's algorithm had been affected on a grand scale to where clips of Schindler's List were playing and very trending in the YouTube shorts. And Seamus and I explained to him that that's because it's very popular to watch Schindler's List for the Jewish people during this time of year, right? In the days following up to Tish B'Av. It's I don't want to say it's like a tradition because it's not, but it is something that is kind of done among
tradition-ish.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway. And think about that. Like, enough people are YouTubing Schindler's List to where it's trending.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 7.6 million Jews in the United States alone.
Right. That's definitely enough to affect the algorithm.
Well, if even half of them are, well, that's 1%. That's more than 1% of the population. So, if half of them are remotely religious, and many will do things like that whether they're religious or not, then that's
right.
definitely
even non-religious Jews will do it as a means of it's identifying with the people, right?
Right. Yeah. So, first question then, and I don't have any banners ready, so I'm going to make them as we go here. Tisha B'Av. So, what is Tish B'Av?
Well,
feel free to take that.
I was going to say, I already explained a little bit of its origins, in that it is the anniversary for the destruction of the temple, both times. The first time by Babylon, and then the second time by Rome.
So coincidentally, a little bit of history then. Now, Tish B'Av, the simple answer is it's a day of fasting, basically just like Yom Kippur. Like, it's a full fast, 24 hours, and it's a fasting in a state of mourning. And it's on the 9th day of the month of Av, which is next Sunday, next Sunday, which actually technically it's on Saturday, but you're not allowed to mourn on Shabbat, so you push it a day. But the reason, and so we're going to get into like what you do in that situation actually in a little bit, but
right.
But yeah, it's a full-on fast, and it traditionally is to mourn the destruction of both temples, which coincidentally happened on the same day in history. At least that has been traditionally accepted. And there's more interesting things to that. So it's traditionally been accepted that on the 9th of Av, the first temple was destroyed. Now, we basically know for a fact that on the 9th of Av, the second temple was destroyed. And so whether or not the first one was on this exact day, we can't really prove that. We don't really have any other extra biblical documents or source material to corroborate this tradition. However, given the pattern of history, and you and I are going to go over here in a little bit, given the pattern of this day in history, it's really not a stretch to say that it was on this day both times. So Let's see here. I got a list of some bad stuff here. So the first, so according to the Mishnah, actually, Tanit 4:6 actually gives a list of 5 particular calamities that occurred, 5 bad things on Tisha B'Av. So once again, some of this is strictly tradition. But again, as we go through history, you'll see that it's really not all that big of a stretch to say that all these things happened within around in the same timeline. So the first one is actually the 12 spies that Moses sent into the land of Canaan. When they returned and they gave their bad report, that was on the 9th of Av, as is traditionally accepted according to the Mishnah, which is interesting in and of itself, I think. You got anything to add to that, sir?
No, that's pretty much the extent of the notes that I recorded on that.
It should be noted that the way the Mishnah treats this 12 spies thing is sort of prophetic, right? It's because of the way the spies handled their report coming back, which a lot of it was false, actually. They brought back a report, and initially they gave truths, and then there's like a section in which a split occurs, and then they start speaking falsely. They start giving it.
Tell you what, I just made a connection here, though.
Go ahead. What you got?
And this is on the basis of, right, anybody who watches Rabbi Foreman and has been through his Genesis series has probably seen the correlation that he draws, or the connection of bad reports, right? Because it's the same words used, bad reports, between the 12 spies and Yosef regarding his brothers, right? That was kind of the one time in the Torah that we see a little frustration in Jacob directed towards Joseph, is that there's frustration over the fact that he always brought bad reports about his brothers to Jacob.
Yeah.
And so this is why he sent him off, right? He sent him off to go find his brothers, to not bring back a bad report, right? Mm-hmm. To bring back a report, but not a bad one.
A report of shalom, a good one.
This, right? It is on this mission that Yosef himself, right, ended up being given over to slavery, bondage. You know, he ended up in Egypt as a result of going and collect reports that were not bad, and this ultimately happened because of how many bad reports he had brought. It reached a point where, you know, Jacob, the father, was like, "Look, enough! Like, go find something good to report about them." So I just find it interesting that the Israelites, you know, they were sent through their desert wanderings, deprived of their of a sooner arrival at home, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like, because if you understand rabbinic commentary on the master plan of establishing Israel, right? The bondage, right, or the exile in Egypt, the Egyptian bondage, is understood to have been initiated with Yosef, right? Mm. So it's like this whole event is bookended by bad reports. Essentially, yeah. It's initiated because of bad reports, and then it is it ultimately ends the same way, and it prolongs their desert wanderings.
Right. Yeah. So and it's a little prophetic in a way, because it's, you know, like it says, the Mishnah connects this event specifically to the reports of the spies. And so it's like this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing, right? It sort of sets the pattern of this day being a calamity. That was a very, very bad day in the history of the Israelite people at that time. to be condemned to die in the desert because of the way that they accepted this report. And so, yeah, it's nothing to like to slouch at, I guess. There's can't think of a better analogy. So the 12 spies, 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. The second calamity we've already briefly spoken about, the first temple. So 586 BCE, the 9th of Av, which, okay, so like technically according to the way the Bible puts it in 2 Kings 25:8, the temple's destruction began on the 7th of Av and continued until the 10th of Av. And so I think it's also corroborated in Jeremiah 50 something. Jeremiah 50 something. I didn't write that citation down. But so it's a span of time. The destruction doesn't happen overnight. So it's between the 7th and the 10th, which is incredibly important as we go down this list later on of things that happen actually between the 7th and the 10th, specifically. But 586 BCE, that's the first temple being destroyed on the 9th of Av. And so, and then respectively, the second temple, also on the 9th of Av, is destroyed in 70 CE. Yeah, that's it for that one. I don't think that one spans over a few days, at least not according to any of the other sources that we have, that I'm aware of anyway. So that's 3. The fourth, and this one is actually incredibly relevant to basically us and to Christians as a whole. This is something that should actually mean more, and we'll talk about why. But the Bar Kokhba revolt is said to have been absolutely crushed on the 9th of Av, and this is in 135 CE. And so when the Bar Kokhba revolt is eventually crushed on the 9th of Av, at a certain point, the Roman officials literally plowed over the city of Jerusalem, totally decimating it, so that it would be completely uninhabitable. Their goal was to actually make it uninhabitable forever. And so the first time in 70 CE, the temple is destroyed, but the city is more or less left standing. At 135 CE, now there's almost nothing left of Jerusalem, to the point where there's a little thing from Rabbi Akiva, I believe it was, the laughter of Rabbi Akiva, because he saw a fox go over where the Holy of Holies used to stand, and it was nothing but like a tip of a hill. Now, completely decimated the city, and so that's a fourth calamity. Or excuse me, that's actually the fifth calamity, is the plowing over of the city in the site of the temple. And he at certain points in history, that temple site becomes the new spot for a pagan temple, and so there's actually a period in time where there's Roman gods sitting on the site of where the temple used to be, very specifically. So that Jews were barred from returning to Jerusalem at all, except on the 9th of Av to mourn it, I believe. They were actually only allowed to enter the gates of Jerusalem on the 9th of Av because of the whole calamity thing, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, bad stuff, guys. Really bad stuff.
Let's say, yeah. And the significance of the crushing of the rebellion of Bar Kokhba we'll discuss a bit later, because there's actually something that there's another thing I'd like to get to before really honing in on that.
Okay.
But as we push further in history, the Jewish expulsion from England also.
That's okay. So I got a list of dates here. Everybody, if you grab a notebook and a pen. This is what history really looks like. It's names, dates, and dead guys. It's not very glorious. So here we go. The First Crusade officially commenced on August 15th, 1096. That would be the 24th of Av in the year 400 or 4856 according to the Jewish calendar. Now it's not the 7th, the 9th, or the 10th of Av, but it's within the month of Av, and so it's in connection. It's not a direct connection, but it's within the connection. That's the official start date. That's not to say that there was stuff happening just before, because you had the People's Crusades that actually is technically not the First Crusade. So depending on how you want to label that, it's its own thing. But then what you just brought up is the first on the 9th of Av event, where I guess it's the English Inquisition, July 18th, 1290 CE, or the 9th of Av, 5050 in the Jewish calendar.
Yep.
Did you have something to connect with that England thing, or did you want me to keep going?
Oh, no, you can keep going. I didn't have anything in particular to connect to England.
Okay. Then, on July 22nd, about 16 years later, July 22nd, 1306, the Jews were expelled from France. That would be the 10th of Av, 5066. And so very close to the 9th of Av, and it's within that 7 to 10. There's a reason why that 7 to 10 time frame is important. This is one of those reasons. So expelled from France. The next big thing is the one thing no one expects. The Spanish Inquisition, July 31st, 1492, happened on the 7th of Av, 5252. And so the Spanish Inquisition, which nobody was expecting apparently, began on the 7th of Av.
That's what I want to get to. So interestingly enough, and we can actually track this even with the other ones prior to that you mentioned, the expulsion from England, the expulsion from France, and then ultimately the expulsion from Spain. You can track European wealth and success by the migrations of the Jews based on these expulsions, because you got to understand, there as much as things change, there's a lot of ways they stay the same, right? So you did have a lot of well-educated bankers, lawyers, doctors, right? People that contribute very important things to society. And then suddenly there weren't a lot in all of these countries, and they suffered because of it. So you have this period where these countries are prospering, and they're actually prospering as a result of the involvement of the Jewish people in their society. And then they expel the Jewish people, and suddenly there aren't a lot of doctors around. There aren't a lot of, well-educated people who can assist society around. And so, they expelled the Jews. The Jews moved to some other European country. Suddenly that country starts prospering, right? You can track European wealth historically by the migrations of the Jewish people. It's extremely noteworthy after the Spanish Inquisition, though. And the reasoning of the Spanish Inquisition, I want all of our listeners to really pay close attention, because we come up against a lot of blowback and backlash, and mainly from the church. They really want to believe that us, right, the movement that has found the Torah and has recognized the Jewish people as God's people, as the big brother that we are to be learning from. They want us to believe that this is a new movement, right? That it doesn't have a historical basis, that the early church was not Torah observant. It's not. All right, so in the 12th century alone, you have the Church of Passagini, right, or the Passage, or the Way, if you will. Just in Italian, it's the Way in Italian, quite literally.
Shout out to the church split.
Hey, church split. What's up, Will? So you have that, but in Spain in particular, understand the primary reason for the Spanish Inquisition, the primary reason for the expulsion of the Jews was very specifically because people like us existed back then. Right? I'm going to read to you from the actual edict of the expulsion of the Jews from 1492. All right, bear with me. This is lengthy, but this is important for you all to hear.
Have at it.
You know well, or ought to know, that whereas we have been informed that in these our kingdoms there were some wicked Christians who Judaized and apostatized from our holy Catholic faith, the great cause of which was interaction between Jews and these Christians in the, it says the Cortes, I don't know what that even is, but in the Cortes which we held in the city of Toledo in the past year 1480, we ordered the separation of said Jews in all the cities, towns, and villages of our kingdoms and lordships, and commanded that they be given Jewish quarters and separated places where they might live, hoping that by their separation the situation would remedy itself. Furthermore, we procured and gave orders that inquisition should be made in the aforementioned kingships and lordships, which, as you know, has for 12 years been made and is being made, and by many guilty persons have been discovered, as is very well known. And accordingly, we are informed by the inquisitors and the other devout persons, ecclesiastical and secular, that great injury has resulted and still results. Since the Christians have engaged and continue to engage in social interactions and communications, they have had means and ways they can subvert and steal faithful Christians from our Holy Catholic Church, from our Holy Catholic faith, and to separate them from it, and to draw them to themselves and subvert their own wicked belief and conviction, instructing them in the ceremonies and observances of their law, holding meetings at which they read and teach that which people must hold and believe according to their law, achieving that the Christians and their children be circumcised, and giving them books from which they may read their prayers, a siddur, and declaring to them the facts that they must keep, and joining with them to read and teach the history of their law, indicating to them the festivals before they occur, advising them of what in them they are to hold and observe, carrying to them and giving to them from their houses unleavened bread and meats ritually slaughtered, instructing them about things from which they must refrain, and as much as in eating as in other things, in order to observe their law, and persuading them as much as they can to hold and observe the law of Moses, convincing them that there is no law or truth except for that one. This proved by many statements and confessions, both from these same Jews and from those who have been perverted and enticed by them, which has redounded to the great injury, detriment, and opprobrium of our Holy Catholic faith. So that's the full statement. That's the second part, right, The first part is mainly introductory and, titles, lord over this region and that region, what have you. That's the first portion. So you're not really getting into the reason for the expulsion from Spain until you get to the second part. And what it says is that they expelled the Jews from Spain specifically because Christians were learning from them. Christians were learning to keep Torah from them. Christians were learning to eat kosher from them. We have been around forever.
For ages. And just to even backtrack a little bit on that, you literally just read word for word the edict that began the Spanish Inquisition and the reasonings therein, which is that Christians were turning to Jews, learning from Jews, learning to pray like Jews, reading from a Siddur, and they use the term Judaizing, which obviously it's the wrong use of the word, but conventionally that word has come to mean, after the Church Fathers, it comes to mean anyone that observes Torah. Suddenly that is the new definition of Judaizer, which is a tactic that the left loves to do, and that's not a new thing. It's a very, very old thing, and the Church Fathers engaged in the exact same style of demonizing their opposition. But to that point, the Bar Kokhba revolt, if we go all the way back to some of these earlier calamities, they are in a direct connection with the Gentile believers in some way, shape, or form. Now, the Bar Kokhba revolt wasn't started because of believers turning to Judaism. In fact, actually, by the Bar Kokhba revolt, many of the Gentile believers who were keeping Torah had long gone. And so there were a remnant of Jewish believers that were still keeping Torah, that were continuing to be Jewish. And actually, it's because Bar Kokhba gets declared to be the Messiah that those particular Jewish believers stopped fighting for the side of Bar Kokhba. And the way the story goes is it was basically half of the Jewish world at the time, more or less. It was a significant number, whether it was actually half or maybe more like a third. A lot of Jews were still holding on to Yeshua as the Mashiach at the time. And so when Bar Kokhba is being hailed as a Messiah, they're like, hey, I can't, you've put me in a tough spot. I can't fight for this guy because that makes it look like I'm affirming his messiahship, and I don't believe that. So they slit all their throats. They killed them all because of the opposition. And as a result, they lost a lot of manpower, and then Rome subsequently steamrolled over the entire movement, basically overnight after that. And so that's where the parting of ways really happens. That we could go into a whole episode on the parting of ways. But the Bar Kokhba revolt's failure is actually partly in part of the fact that there were, in fact, Torah observing Yeshua believers within the Jewish world.
That is why it is important, even for followers of Yeshua, to observe this day. This is exactly why I wanted to hone in on the reason behind the Spanish Inquisition first is first to establish the historical precedents for followers of Yeshua,
yes,
finding their place as the younger sibling to Judah, right? Because that is a journey that we're all making back. We were there at one point, we're finding our way back. But there's a point at which we were exiled, and this is it, right? So the ultimate failure of the Bar Kokhba rebellion resulted in not only the expulsion of the Jewish people, right? The exile of the Jewish people from their home, but it resulted in the exile of followers of Yeshua from Judaism.
Yes. And
right.
that was where I was going with that. I'm really glad you roped it in and tied a neat little bow on it like that for me. But yeah, because it's from that point on, that's when Judaism as a whole basically said, listen, if you so much as speak this person's name, you can't be one of us. And so that's where the parting of ways happens. That's where it used to be in the days of Paul where Yeshua believers and non-believers, but Jewish devout Jews, would be worshiping in the same synagogues, side by side as brothers and sisters, whether they all believed in Yeshua or not. Paul not only, Paul not only indicates that this is happening at the time in all of his letters, but he seems to imply that he expects this to continue happening this way. And so it's because of the Bar Kokhba revolt's failure, the way that it happened, and just the way that everything went down. You are not welcome in synagogues anymore. And so we become severed from our bigger brother, sadly. And you know what? It's very much like Mashiach ben Yosef. It's very much like Yosef himself. He is thrown into a pit, and his death is fabricated in such a way. And it's not a pretty sight, but it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will.
Yep. And I think to quickly move to some of the others, because I know we want to get into some of the practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
What he's done. 1492, you have the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. Another interesting thing that we were discussing a little bit earlier is, now this is not corroborated. This is a claim from the individual himself, but the false Messiah, Shabbatai Tzvi, which there is a difference between a failed Messiah and a false Messiah, and we could do a whole episode on that. But the false Messiah, Shabbatai Tzvi, claims to have been born on Tish B'Av. Now, a lot of people who have a negative view of Kabbalah have the negative view of Kabbalah because of Shabbatai Tzvi, right? That is essentially the origin of it. It's funny because that instance caused for a little bit of reunification between followers of Yeshua and Judaism, because one of the chief Jews who was battling against him, so to speak, right, was Rabbi Yaakov Emden. And he wrote to Christianity, right? He wrote to Christian churches to warn them about Shabbatai Tzvi. Because the church was kind of in political control at the time, to appeal to them against Shabbatai Tzvi. And so he re-examined the person of Yeshua, and even exclaimed him as a brother, right? Referred to Yeshua as a brother of the Jewish people. Re-explaining to the church that Yeshua was Jewish. We see that there, and then ultimately, to follow in line with the expulsion from different European countries, the final solution ultimately was hatched.
So you skipped. So Shabbatai Tzvi claims to be 9th of Av, Tish B'Av.
Yeah.
Which, little known fact, by the way, to prove that he was a Messiah, he began to try and pronounce the holy name of God, which you don't do.
Right.
So for, and I'm going to take a little dig at our community here, but every time you try and pronounce the name, you kind of link yourself with Shabbatai Tzvi.
You're doing that bad Kabbalah that you hate so much.
You're doing the thing. You're doing the thing. Okay, so don't do the thing, please. But anyway, Germany entered World War I on August 1st, 1914, or the 9th of Av, 5674 per the Jewish calendar. And that obviously causes the upheaval within European Jewry from the Germans overall, which will eventually lead to the final solution of the Holocaust. And so, yes, as you said, now that we're caught back up on the timeline, August 2nd, 1941, the 9th of Av, SS Commander Heinrich Himmler formally received via a letter for the approval of the Nazi Party's final solution. As a result, the Holocaust began on this day officially. It had been happening to an extent already, But now is the official, this is when the final solution began. Subsequently, on July 23rd, 1942, the 9th of Av, Tish B'Av, 5702, began the mass deportation of Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto to Treblinka, which would ultimately be one of the topmost death camps behind Auschwitz. Treblinka was easily a close second, if not a third. Fairly sure, though, it's in second place as far as numbers of deaths go. So yeah, a lot of really bad things happened specifically on Tisha B'Av. And very particularly to the Jewish people. D. Thomas Lancaster writes in his book, in his introduction, he talks about he went to a Holocaust museum, I believe, and he was a young boy. But the curator at the time there said something along the lines of, no people in history have been as oppressed as the Jewish people. And, D. Thomas Lancaster, being a good Christian, thinking in his head, well, we're the enemies of the devil, right? So shouldn't we? So he spoke up and he said, besides Christians, right? And everybody laughed at him. A sound you don't often hear inside of a Holocaust museum, he noted. But yeah, no, the Jewish people have absolutely been the target of the most oppression throughout all of history, and almost very particularly on the 9th of Av, strange enough. So there's a lot of calamity here, a lot of sadness. There's definitely a reason for treating this day like basically Yom Kippur 2.0. So let's see. The banner. Why should Christians observe this day? So this is actually, believe it or not, this Tish B'Av thing is part of what the New Testament would consider to be the gospel message, believe it or not. What in the world do I mean by that? So like the typical Christian mindset is that the gospel message is the death, burial, and resurrection. That's actually not the gospel message. That's the way that we've sort of simplified it in the Christian world. But the gospel, the Besorah, is actually repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's why in Matthew and in Mark, long before Jesus' death, it says Jesus went around preaching the gospel. He wasn't preaching the death, burial, and resurrection, as that hadn't happened yet. So what was the gospel he was preaching? This brings me all the way to Luke 19. It's also in Matthew 23, but primarily over Luke 19, because Luke portrays Jesus as a prophet. Luke's focus is that this is a prophetic person. Mark is, every gospel has their theme. Luke's gospel is Jesus the prophet. That's usually how I summarize it. But Luke 19, 41 through 44, Jesus is approaching the city of Jerusalem, and he has a prophetic vision in this moment of its destruction, and he weeps over the city. We read the story because we know how it ends, and so we have our own theories on why we think that he weeps over the city. It could be anything from, the destruction's a bad thing, and death and destruction is worth weeping over. But in typical Christian theology, the destruction of the temple was eventual, and it was eventually a sign of the new covenant being enacted, and that the old covenant's officially being done away with, and that God sealed his seal of approval with this destruction. We stand against that version of the interpretation. That's not how we see this. What we see here is that Jesus is weeping over a city because he does not want this to happen. The city of Jerusalem is very much deeply a part of the gospel message for him. It is the focal point. It's the center point. Everything will ultimately come forth from Zion and return to Zion in the end of days. This is the most beloved city in Yeshua's mind. His weeping is because he wishes that this were not the case, that it would be destroyed. And so why should Christians keep it? because we should be wishing the same thing. Our will should be very much like his if we claim to be his disciples, his students. Correct me if I'm wrong. Stop me at any time, sir, if you've got anything to add. But yeah, he weeps because that's not what he wanted. But it happens, very prophetically. And so that's the first sign of Tish B'Av for us, at least in the Gospels. Is we could actually point to Yeshua mourning over the destruction of the temple. So we should absolutely be doing the same thing. That's my 2 cents.
No, yeah, I was reading through the comments.
Oh yeah, are they getting bad? I haven't seen them yet.
No. We've had good ones. You'd mentioned a quote earlier that reminded me of actually something from Spurgeon. I don't remember the quote verbatim, but it's to the effect of, a Christian is the last person who ought ever speak a negative word about the Jews. And that may even be a direct quote. I saw it years and years ago from Charles Spurgeon, but it's like, yeah, I mean, wow.
All right, so real quick, because this doesn't take very long, how do you observe Tish B'Av?
Well, it's funny. Some of this I actually learned this week from one of our Orthodox Jewish advisors, and that is that for this time they don't eat meat except for on Shabbat. You can eat meat on Shabbat.
These are the 9 days leading up to Tish B'Av.
Yeah.
For the first 9 days of the month of Av is a mourning period, so you wouldn't shave, you wouldn't eat meat except on Shabbos. Yeah, yep. It's like a mourning period leading up to the day. Yeah.
And when it comes to hand washing, they don't, the Natilat Yadayim, they don't do up to the wrist. They stop at the knuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, just basically just the fingertips there, which I found as interesting. I'd be curious to know the reasoning behind that, because as I understand, especially for the morning, right after you first wake up, there are very interesting reasonings that the Shulchan Aruch explains about why you wash your hands upon waking. So I'd be curious to know, given those reasons, why stop at the knuckle. I think I'd be fascinated by the answer, so I will have to ask somebody.
Yeah, I've not actually thought to ask why. Just know that is a. But yeah, so on the 9 days up itself, you sort of like you try not to buy new clothes or stuff like that. It's like a period of mourning. But on the day itself, it's basically Yom Kippur. It's a 24-hour full-on fast.
Yep. No food or water.
No food or water. No leather shoes.
I think unless you are like sick, like very sick,
yeah.
or pregnant women.
Yes, there are many exceptions to the rule. For sure, if it's going to be a detriment to your health,
yeah,
then obviously, and you're not allowed to read the Tanakh because that's considered an enjoyable thing. But you are only allowed to read Lamentations, right, or Job. And so most of the day will be spent at a synagogue reading from the book of Lamentations, or Eicha, and Job. It's a very solemn day. Oh, you won't sit on a high chair. You will sit on a low stool or even on the ground. Some Jews might not sleep in their beds. They may opt to sleep on the floor, or at the very least, rearrange their sleeping conditions in such a way that it's slightly uncomfortable from what they're used to, such as still sleeping in the bed, but removing a pillow, something like that. Like you're in a period of, it's like sitting the 7 days of Shiva, mourning from the loss of a parent. It's a very serious, mourning period. Now it's not a Sabbath. So it's not like Yom Kippur, in which it's like a Sabbath and you can't do any work. But it's like Yom Kippur in basically every other sense of the word.
Right.
So yeah, and that's kind of the down and dirty. As far as and there's actually a lot more. Honestly, we could walk through everything here on the channel, but it's really just a quick list of a few things that you can easily find.
I was going to say Chabad even has a list of them.
Yeah, and it's literally 5 things: no eating or drinking, no washing or bathing. That's the one we left out. No showers. No applications of creams or oils, right? So like I put this stuff on pretty daily. It's Marble by Bath and Body Works. No shame, but it smells good. But this is a cream, right? And so it smells really good. None of that. No colognes or anything like that. No wearing leather shoes, and no sexual relations with your spouse. Those are the 5 things. And you can find that list on like Chabad. You can honestly anywhere, any website will probably have them listed in such a way. But it's basically the same rules as Yom Kippur, only that it's not considered a Sabbath day.
Yep.
Yeah. So cool. I think we're actually closing in on an hour, which is just about perfect. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up. So not what you're drinking. If you got questions, now's your chance. For the next couple of minutes, we'll take a couple of questions, and then we will go into the after parties. So while you guys are thinking up some questions, you got one?
Yeah, I thought this might have been a good one. Wonder if Adam and Eve got thrown out of the garden on that day. Which, and we don't really have any way of knowing.
Yeah.
Except that I think the evidence we're given in Genesis would indicate that it was probably closer to a harvest season around that time.
Jewish tradition is it was Yom Kippur.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so yeah, getting closer to a harvest season. Yom Kippur is like literally right on the cusp of the harvest season.
yeah. So I was gonna say it's which is the 10th day of the first month, and so it's like Adam and Eve only lasted like 10 days in the garden. But that's a tradition anyway, and it's not actually a widely accepted tradition. It's kind of like a niche tradition, but it is a tradition. While we're still waiting for some other questions, do some shameless plugging. If you haven't already, check out our website, altonatemedia.com. Again, those articles are temporarily free, but they will go back to being a paid membership only, just like for our Patreons. We do have a payment plan on the website. And it's basically just like the Patreon. We're slowly going to transfer away from the Patreon into just the website. But a lot of it's exactly the same. However, if you're still inclined to do the Patreon instead, that's fine. The Patreon link is in the description below, but we prefer that you go straight to the website and sign up with a plan that way. That way we can make that transfer a little bit easier, and then you can just cancel your Patreon. Everything's good to go. If you're not already, join the Discord server. It is lit in there, fam. Man, do we have fun, and man, does it get heated sometimes. But I love it all the time anyway. And if you are a Patreon member, or if you are a subscribing member to our website, you get access to the after parties, which is one-on-one with just us and all the other paying Patreon members. Membership starts at $1 a month, by the way. And you get to hang out with us. You can ask us questions. You can scold us. You can roast us. You can sit in awkward silence with us. We don't care. That's your time. It's immediately after the show, and so that's your time that you can sit down with us and ask us whatever you want, or just chill. A lot of the times we just end up chilling with our supporters. You guys are awesome. We have the best community, by the way.
We really do. Because even when hostility, man, this is what I love, right? Whenever hostility does come about on the Discord server, everybody handles it so maturely. You know, because usually it's one person who is in their cage stage of their faith, right? And they come out swinging hard, and it's like everybody else in the chat is like being so gentle, and just kind of trying to talk the person down, like, hey, like, you know, we get that you disagree, but you can disagree without being disagreeable. And, you know, like, it we have an awesome community that handles that kind of situation with maturity, and I love you guys for it.
Real quick, don't see a payment plan, only a lump sum payment plan option. We're actually, it's in the works. This is why we said that the Patreon still might be a better option for some people. We have to edit some of that stuff. Long story short, there's actually some credit card fees that we have to cover or get over. And so the $1 a month plan doesn't make sense through the website if we have to charge $1.13 for a credit card processing fee every time. So we're actually paying you to be a paying member. Interesting. Or we're paying anyway. It's so we've got some working to do. So the Patreon is still up for that reason. Everything's still interconnected. You'll have all the same accesses. And all the stuff that's on the website that's for paying members only is going to be available on the Patreon. The Patreons only. So you're not missing anything. And so, yeah, both of those are still options. They're totally synchronized, so everything's good. Anyway, we're about 2 minutes over an hour. Look at the other, but I don't have the option.
I would say go to our Patreon.
So, well, if you go to your profile on the website, you click on the drop down, hit my subscriptions, and it should actually give you the option to look at the other plans. But anyway, I think that if no one else has any other questions about Tish B'Av or the website or the merch, you guys should definitely check out some of the merch. We got some t-shirts that are lit, and these mugs are not these mugs. These pint glasses are the best.
Yep.
But no, you shouldn't have to cancel your current subscription to look at the other options. I don't believe you should have to do that. We'll look at that. We'll look at that. But you should be able to view the other plans without canceling yours as an upgrade. Possibly, actually, if you click on Brad's article, the 2 greatest commandments, it will prompt you to do the upgrade on that article specifically, I believe. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it. Yeah, I got nothing else. You got anything else?
Well, since you mentioned the article, the 2 greatest commandments, for everybody watching, many of you know that we are currently working on a book. The 2 greatest commandments will be part of that book. That's why that is actually one of the premium paid membership articles, is because that is the article that effectively became the book. In the process of writing that article, I realized it was entirely too long to just stay an article, and so it became a book idea, and so that's the brainchild.
Interesting. Very well. Yeah, we're both working on a couple of book projects, and so if you are a Patreon or subscriber to the website, you'll actually get regular updates. Some of these articles are just straight excerpts from our books that we're currently working on, so you'll actually get a chance to see some of our books as they're in the process of being written. And we'll probably have a promo for some of our OG subscribers to get a free copy of our books when they come out.
Definitely.
No promises, but maybe. I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to do. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, that's it. Once again, a special thanks to all of our top tier heretics. You, Talmudim, that list is continually growing, and holy cow, and it's so humbling to watch that list grow. So,
absolutely,
thank you all. And may Hashem bless you abundantly for your absolute generosity. That Talmudim tier is a very high tier. For those of you watching, I mean, we kind of set it a little high to kind of discourage people from going there, and people keep going there.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. No. Every time we get a new one, because we get an update on our phones, and so we text in the group chat like, "Dude, for real though, like another one."
we're like, what do we? Anyway, we're so thankful. Thank you so much. Your support, it means the world to us. Every dollar counts, and we really do take it seriously. And it helps to do everything that we're doing here. You guys, I mean, it's so humbling. I'm done rambling. So I'm gonna cue the credits here, the regular credits. And
Absolutely.
I hope you
Have
got
you
something left.
told everybody to subscribe and ominous dominus?
I had it in the banner. Yeah, bless the subscribe button, bless the like button, and nomine patria filii, the subscribe button.
And with that said, we thank you all for joining us tonight. I was pretty excited about doing this one, especially with some of what I learned from it. So definitely thank you for joining us. We hope to see most of you in the after partes, and if we don't, well, as always, l'chaim.
Fine.